Be the change you want to see. Make a difference by giving your money a purpose, a mission to do good. Welcome to Money with Mission, where we talk to individuals, businesses, and organizations who are taking the lead and whose actions are impacting the well-being of their communities and the world at large.
I can't tell you guys how excited I am to have a friend of mine. I'm going to call her an old friend, but she's not, it doesn't mean that. We've known each other for a very long time. This is my friend Cheryl Womack.
Hello.
Cheryl is a businesswoman who has been on the most hazardous of journeys. It is a fact that the movers and shakers find themselves in hot water from time to time. Cheryl experienced 14 months being incarcerated and while there developed a deep sense of compassion for women in prison. Realizing there was absolutely nothing available in the form of education for entering jail, being in jail, and getting out, she followed her heart and started a process to support. Her books, training materials, and ultimately her website have become the passion of her life's journey. Cheryl, I, again, cannot tell you how excited I am to have you and to thank you so much for coming on the show.
I'm excited to be here. And again, like I briefly expressed to you, I think you have to come to terms with, if you're really going to help people, you have to wear this experience as a badge of honor. When I taught continuing education, or not continuing education, but GED in school, I mean, I told girls, what are you good at now? You are a professional prisoner. If the population of women going to prison is going to grow by 800% over the last 40 years, they need people who can help them. And the girls coming out are just the girls who can.
That's a lot. We're going to back up and start back where we knew each other, but I'm going to tell you guys, in one of my books and one of the forewords, I think it might have been the last one, I talk about Cheryl. Cheryl was the one who introduced me to Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
We did our first one of my first real estate deals with Cheryl. She helped me with that. And we lost track of each other for a long time and are just now reconnecting. So start way back when we first knew each other. Tell us about how you got into business in the first place.
Well, so way before we even met, back in the 1980s, when women, were nobody and more secretarial, clerical, sales, some. I worked for a gentleman who was in his 50s and I was in my 30s. And I started running his operation because he was just a lazy boss. Nice boss, but a lazy boss. So I started running his organization and I loved it. And I really didn't want to start my own business. I wanted to run his. I offered to sell for him, but he wouldn't let me take the next step. So I quit to start my own. I was married at the time, and like anything, you'll find that once a big change happens in your life, nothing goes unturned. Eventually, you've sort of screened through it all. So I left my husband, moved in with my sister, had nowhere to live. I had to go find a job. I found a job with a person who said, I'll pay you $17,000 a year and see if you can sell insurance. And my passion for trucking insurance, which is what I did, to put insurance on independent contractor drivers who are a bunch of independent businessmen, was so great that I found a market for it and I started my business. I started it in the basement of my home. I grew it to where I had a claims company, an association, an MGA company, which is a wholesale insurance company, a retail insurance company, and the companies all combined were about $100 million in value in about 20 years' time.
Wow. I didn't know all of that, but that's a lot. Go ahead.
So through the course of that, I did have a couple down years because I had a couple kids. I had two boys. And I would go through my timeline and go, what happened here? What happened here? And they're going, you were pregnant and having babies. I'm like, okay. So, and I don't have any domestic customers. I don't have any in Kansas City. So to do business, I had to travel all the time. So I sold the businesses and I hooked up with you and Cindy Drake, another girlfriend of ours. And we wanted to do this Women's Life Center, which I think we were just way ahead of our time.
I agree.
I look at a lot of things that I've tried to do, and partly we were just too ahead of our time. I mean, during my insurance company days, I had on-site daycare for my women at $40 a week, for newborns up through till they could go to preschool or up till they could go to kindergarten. I mean, we're talking in the mid-'80s, I'm doing that. And my kids can't go because I would fill up a third of what I could put in there if I started with my two. So my kids have got a nanny at home, but I'm bringing up people who really can't afford it. And here's how I try to look at things. I try to say, it's really a benefit for them to have a great daycare and it's right there. But it also is a benefit for me that that person's not running out the door and they'll be 6 minutes late where they want $7 trillion because you're 6 minutes late to pick up your kid. So now I have a woman who can stay calm, go downstairs, pick up her child, bring her back upstairs with her, wrap things up and go home. And guess what? I might have an employee that stays alive a little bit longer, isn't through the panic, and she has some time with her kid.
Yeah. How many employees did you have when you were at the most with your company?
I had about 103. It never became a huge company. We were very automated. It just became, I believed in being efficient. So you just literally what I did, my incentive to them was that I would give them 100%. We'd set a goal and say, if we grow 10% this year, you as the employees will get 100% of that 10%. If you don't grow 10%, you get none of it. None. Okay. I get it all. But every year thereafter, I will get that 10% for me forever. And so you've got to grow again another 10%. So we'd set goals. We were growing 15, 20, 25%. And among 100 employees, I'd be giving out $1 million.
That was in what years?
That was like 2000.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So when did the
so then after that, after Women's Life Center was started happening, then I got into a bunch of businesses. I probably was in 20, 30 different businesses at once, not doing any of them well, from restaurant businesses to a business called Leading Women Entrepreneurs of the World, where I traveled all over the world to induct 15 new women into the program once a year, something between a Miss Universe and a Olympics kind of a strategy. And it just took a lot of time and a lot of traveling. And, in between, I'd be up at the Countryside Bistro in Maryville, Missouri, running the Saturday night wedding. And making plastic flowers. It was crazy time. But anyway, so the girl with me gone all the time, I think decided she was doing all the work, and because she didn't see me working, so she started embezzling $25,000 to $50,000 from me a month. I'm leaving this person completely in charge of my money. Biggest lesson learned: don't ever do that. That was stupid, stupid, stupid. And eventually, I figured out at the end of 2007. Actually 2008 early, I figured out that I'd paid for her college and didn't realize I was paying for her college while she was going to school over her lunch hour, which she wasn't going over her lunch hour. She was like taking half a day, 3 days a week. So she embezzled over $3 million from me. And when I caught her, I told her, I'm turning you in. And she says, well, if I go down, you're going down. Well, what that told me was that she plotted and planned to figure out how to take me down with her as a threat. Well, I still turned her in. So lo and behold, at the end of the day, the FBI goes to see her and she's pathological. She's just a pathological girl. And they opened a file on her and they opened a file on me the same day to start investigating us both. Now, they never came to interview me. They never came to see me. Ultimately, after this started in 2008, in 2013, December 2013, I'm sitting going over estate planning with my youngest son who's working with me and the attorney. And we have breaking news, of course, with the Business Journal and everything in Kansas City with my picture popping out there that I'm being indicted. And it was, it's one of those moments in your life where you just see white lights and you really can't focus very well. And you're just trying to get your grips around you and go, what does this mean? Of course, then my phone started blowing up and, I was going to try to keep working through it with the attorney because it would give me something else to do. But my phone wasn't going to allow me to do that.
Yeah. But so your first notification that you were indicted or being indicted was a news flash?
Yeah. Newsflash. I mean, I wasn't interviewed. They never came and saw me. She was their single solitary witness to say that I was hiding money in the Cayman Islands. Well, I had a reinsurance business for 20 plus years in the Cayman Islands, helped set up by Fireman's Fund, legitimately filed and licensed and done in every way, being approved and audited by the Monetary Authority, blah, blah, blah. And everybody kept going, oh, they're going to say the Cayman Islands. And I went, that's where the reinsurance company was. They didn't do them in the United States back then. So again, not coming to me for explanations, she told them, I had like $10 million hidden down there. Well, the reinsurance company had done quite well. And eventually the reinsurance trust could be turned into some other kind of business, but not until it had paid every single claim, which it was still in the midst of doing and going forward with. And so, the problem is they just never came and asked me. So another guy who did my taxes. They were going after him, and he did a bunch of people's taxes, and they didn't like him. And so they pulled me in to ask me questions, and they agreed they would not use anything in there against me. They literally signed off on that and said they would use nothing against me. And then they asked me about Al Davison, and they started asking me about my businesses. Well, if somebody comes to you and says, out of the blue, because you think you're coming in for somebody else, well, when did you start that reinsurance company? I mean, I was guessing. I'm like, I think around, that's the lie I got taken down for. I basically got indicted for, it's called impeding the government, because I couldn't give them the exact answer for when the company started out of the blue.
Okay, so
that's how easily anybody, I just want you to know that's how easily anybody can get indicted and go to jail. If they want you, they want you.
I was going to say the lessons, okay, lesson number one, don't let anybody else watch your money. You've always got to be paying attention to your own money.
You have to.
And then the lesson number two is if you're talking to some law people, you got to have a lawyer with you.
You got to have a lawyer, because they came to me and they said, I'm coming to see you about Brandy. Well, he lied, and the magistrate judge wrote him up in the hearings and accused him of trickery and deceit, and said, you've just given Ms. Womack a reason to appeal if this thing goes to trial, because you've tricked her and deceived her. And they went after her like crazy to say, why would you do that? And she goes, 40 years of experience sitting on the bench as a judge. He lied to her. So the other part you need to know is, as much as they tried to write up everything, making it sound like I was this big tax evader, but they never even went to you have to go to the government and ask permission, the federal government, to ask permission to file for tax evasion. And the IRS agent testified in front of the judge and said, no, Your Honor, we've never even asked them if we can file tax evasion against her. Never. But if you read anything, you think it's all about tax evasion. So I'll have to do a book about it to clear the air for what's going on. And I think it'll be a nail biter for people to just see how quickly your life can fall apart and how over afraid everybody is. The rule here is, if anybody wants to talk to you under any circumstances, get an attorney. I asked, do I need an attorney? And they said no. That was not true. They knew I was represented, and by their rules, they are not supposed to even come near me without letting my attorney know they're going to interview me. But they said, we want to talk to you, and we think we found some more money that Brandy has hidden from you. And so I came back from out of town, and I said, okay, I'll meet you at 9:00 at the office. I went in to meet him. Then I asked, could I bring in a girl in my office, Teresa Brimacombe, and could I have her come in with me and be an interview? And they said no. Well, that's the other thing. They're supposed to allow me to have an interview. And you I'm sure don't realize, but the FBI doesn't really take recordings. They just sort of jot their own little notes and write it later. Mm-hmm. They can write whatever they want.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so they had two witnesses writing things up. There was just me. I couldn't have anybody in there. And after about 15 minutes, I said, I'm done. And they basically turned in an interview that would have taken, I'm not kidding you, 2 hours. It just wasn't fathomable or believable. And thank goodness the judge saw it. I mean, it's like I told you, at the end of the day, there was nothing I could do. It was God's destiny to put me in. I just said, God wants me to go to jail. That's all there is to it, because I had 175 letters written from the most amazing people all over the world, writing to the judge going, this just isn't Cheryl. She wouldn't do this. This is, maybe you can put her on home confinement. She's 67 years old, blah, blah, blah. And literally the day I got sentenced, I had a judge look at me and say, anybody can do 12 months in jail. Of course, my smarter response was, well, let's bring your wife with me, see if she can do it. So I was like, are you kidding me? Anybody can do 12 months in jail. And it was a federal prison camp. It's not state, it's not county, it's the feds.
So did you go to trial, or was it,
No.
How did it end up?
Okay, so a judge in the Cayman Islands asked me to come down and said, it looks like I've been being misrepresented and not good information is going out. He holds this hearing and he chastises them all and says, does anybody here think Ms. Womack's broken the law? And they all go, nope, nope, nope. So he goes, I'm not going to let anybody testify against her. I'm not letting any citizens go out of here. And I'm not letting any more information leave this island that I don't physically see and don't get to discuss with Ms. Womack. He put that in writing a month later and he sent it to the prosecuting attorneys here in Kansas City. The prosecuting attorneys, I believe, the attorney I had was a prosecuting attorney. Her whole thing was she was going to set up all her cases around doing slave trafficking.
Uh-huh.
And when she first took me on, which was at the 30 days of coming on board, they threatened to take her cases away, and then they took them away, which is also against the law, to threaten your attorney and then to actually do something to your attorney. So they took all those cases away. Somehow, some way, it's Easter time now, and we've come back from all of this, and I have to, that weekend, my attorney suddenly turns on me after she's written to the judge and written to the press and everybody and said she's not guilty. Suddenly, she says, you're guilty and you have to make a deal. And she just turned on me. It was psychopathic. It was crazy. And I had to make a deal that weekend, that day. I said, look, it's Easter weekend. Just be with your family. Let me think about this. No, couldn't happen. I was absolutely emotionally brutalized into making this deal and was absolutely convinced that I would not do jail time because we could wordsmith it so carefully, that there couldn't be anything to it. Well, right after we got it all wordsmithed so carefully and got a deal made, she dumped me. So I paid her $5.1 million and she dumped my entire case, and I had to go find a new attorney. It was pretty wild.
Wow.
So the new attorney says, you're going to a sentencing hearing in a month. There's nothing left here now to do but make the best deal we can make for you. So that's what we did. And like I said, 30 days later, I ended up in front of him, and he gave me about 26 days to prepare myself to go away for 18 months. Now, with good time, you get your time reduced, so that ended up being 14 months, but my sentencing was for 18 months. Okay. Yeah, it was crazy. It's crazy. It's hard to really sit here and believe it happened to me.
That's exactly what I was about to say. This is an unbelievable story. Okay, so do you want to talk about being in prison, what that was like?
Sure. I cried my eyes out when I went. When my husband drove me up, I went to Greenville, Illinois, and it's not that far away from St. Louis, Missouri, and I have a sister who lives there. So we stayed overnight, and of course I want to eat dinner and you can't eat, you can't talk, you can't, 8 o'clock at night I'm going downstairs, and so we're trying to go to bed, you can't go to sleep. Now it's time for me to memorize my number, my federal ID number, because I just know I'm going to use that number a lot starting the next morning. So my husband's trying to sleep, we can't sleep. And finally we drove up, and I just said, as we got closer, I said, I just want you to slow down. I'm going to drop and roll. I don't want you to come in. I don't think I can look at you while I go into this place. I don't know what's going to happen. It was just really horrible.
Oh my gosh.
So the good news is it wasn't really horrible. It's scary. And, they put you in a white uniform, and a lot of things they say about strip searching and stuff, I just think I fell through the cracks, and that didn't happen to me. Okay. So I got to go in a closet and change my clothes out, and, a lot of things that were, really just mandatory. And I had in my ruling from the judge, I didn't have to ever, pee. So I didn't have to do that kind of stuff, okay. Which a lot of them have to do, and they do it spontaneously for, wide groups of them through it. But anyway, so I go in there, and as I'm going in, they're going, well, where are you going? Well, they put me in, so you go into a bus stop, and a bus stop is a very small room you live in with 9 other people. So I go into this bus stop, and I'm in there with 9 other girls, and as I'm going in medical, and everybody goes, where are you going? I went, A, and they're like, oh. And I just kept getting these, oh. And then I found out I got put in the troublemakers bus stop. All the kids who were getting in trouble all the time and getting shots were all in this bus stop. Okay. And it's like, oh, joy. And then here I am, 68 years old, and they put me in an upper bunk. Now, these bunks are steel. I got a flat slat metal, so I had a 2-inch plastic mattress, and then I had no springs, none, just flat steel, no pillows, and I was on an upper floor, and I just had to get on this real rigid metal stairs that are pretty deep to try to climb up and climb down. And I'm pretty limber, but not that limber. Mm-hmm. The kids made it look like they're just sliding up and down. They're just like, no, this is particular. And I said, do you have like side rails? Because I'm afraid because it wasn't against a wall on either side. So I was just sure I was going to fall out and kill myself just landing on the concrete. So it's cinder blocks and concrete. And anybody who's grown up in the projects is very familiar with what the place looks like, which is sad unto itself. I just started praying and told myself, I'm doing this one day at a time. I'm not going to think about tomorrow. I'm not going to think about how long it is. I'm just going to do it one day at a time. And that helped me go to sleep, helped me get up the next day. Sadly, to this day, women in prison are dressed in men's clothes. Why? I think it's because nobody's ever thought about it. So ladies, if you're going to go to jail, you need to know what waist you wear in men's clothes, what your belt is, what shirt size, what boots you wear in men's clothing. The whole night, the only thing you wear of women's is you wear sports bras, which I didn't know what size I wore that because I don't wear sports bras. And you have to know what size panties you wear. Other than that, everything's men's. Even later when you can build up some money and they run to Walmart and buy your clothes, they make you buy men's clothes.
Huh.
It's crazy. I mean, I just think it's another defacing thing that they do, but again, I'm not even going to give them credit for thinking about it that much. I just don't think they were smart enough to realize. I think men have gone to jail forever. So first they were just managed and said, you get what everybody else gets. But now that it's the fastest growing segment of the population going to jail, and it's quickly, the numbers are coming in, and it's got, probably 1.5 million women in various jails. It's time to let women have women's clothing. It would make such a difference just for you feeling like a human being.
So I want to hear so much more of your story, but you did tell me you're writing a book.
I am writing a book.
Okay. So everybody, we're going to have to get Cheryl back on when her book comes out, because I'm still on pins and needles to find out what's going on. But I want to hear more about what your experience has led you to do.
Right.
Talk about women of worth.
Okay. So in a short period of time, I got asked to run the Big Sisters program, where you're helping new people come in. And I think the most important thing you need to do about that is get their phone number and have somebody in your family call their family and let them know they're safe, because that's what your family's the most afraid of. And you were safe in there unless you were just really stupid. There could be somebody crazy and it could be damaging, but then I started teaching GED and, started meeting a whole lot more kids. And then I taught entrepreneurial classes, and we did 4 business plans about how to do prison reform and businesses for women going in and coming out of prison. And then I started being a town driver and driving women all over St. Louis and Illinois and everywhere, and finding out how bad our medical was. I knew it was bad, but it was worse.
Back up. How many women would be taking your classes?
Well, so I would have like 25 sign up, and by the time the class was over, I'd have like 28. It was just, we'd grow. Okay. And most of the classes would start with 20, and they'd end up with like 3.
Of the other kinds of classes.
Of the other kinds of classes. A Spanish class or a hand sign, or like you might take it on stars and space. And so you just watch videos and stuff. You just didn't do anything. So, I had a graduation ceremony, and I had them make me send in certificates. Anyway, the long story short is you realize women don't have self-esteem. Most women don't have the self-esteem they need anyway. Certainly these women now who've been tattooed a prisoner, and probably for a lot of them not the first time, have no self-esteem. And so, the first thing I started doing was making an area, it was a prison-free zone. I said, you're not in prison, you're in my class. When you go out there, you can be in prison. But mentally, you have to start shifting. So we did. And so because I was older, my nickname was Biddy, B-I-T-T-Y, Biddy, like old Biddy.
I gotcha.
But if somebody else came up who was a stranger and goes, Biddy, and they go, she's not your Biddy, she's my Biddy. Because I had finally the girls that were the troublemakers, we ended up being the most decorated and the calmest, most homey-like place there was. And I was in there for 90 days. Then they put you in an alley. So through all of those, I just kept saying, I have to do something about this. People don't know women are in jail. They don't even know they're there. People don't understand what their life is. I had a bunkie who had a 7-month-old baby. So I wrote a book that you can get on my website, womenofworthwow.org. And it's called Mommy Loves You Everywhere. When you buy a book, it gets you an autographed book, but it also sends a book to a woman in prison somewhere in the United States, because then they get the book and they can sign it, fill it out, and share it with their family. And what the book does is it shows day-to-day experiences that you have while you're sitting in jail. But guess what? The whole time you're doing all these things, you're thinking about your child. Mm-hmm. That's all you're thinking. And so it depicts that. So the child can see they're never forgotten. They're never out of sight. And I think that's true for us, whether we're traveling with business, whether we're over in the military, whether we're working the night shift. And certainly when you're in prison, when you don't, often your kids are small enough, they can't even come see you.
Yeah. So, hey, everybody, don't worry. I'm going to put all what Cheryl just said about where you can get that book. It'll be in the show notes. So hang on there.
So that book is written. It's written in English and Spanish. I have a friend of mine who is working with a bunch of gentlemen, and they're writing a man's version because theirs is going to be more on advice, but it's taking a little bit of time and they're doing their own illustrations. So it should be fascinating. I hope by the end of the year, I'll have the male version of Mommy Loves You Everywhere. And I'm excited to get that one done. Then I'm working on a book now that I'm halfway through. Hopefully by the end of the year, I'll have it published, but it's called How to Go to Camp. There are things you have to ponder when you're getting told you're going to jail. If you don't have a whole lot of money and you are paying a house payment, and maybe you just started making the house payment and this happens to you, or maybe you're halfway through, or let's say you're renting a place and it's really nice and you want to hang on to it and come back to it. Chances are when you get out of jail, they're not going to rent to you because people don't rent to felons. They don't give credit cards to felons. They don't sell cars to felons. Banking's hard to get for felons. Insurance. I had my banker throw me out while I was in jail, even though I'd had millions and millions of dollars with them for years. I had my insurance company dump me and put me in high risk. Again, when you think about how stable my life was and the access I had to funds and people, all I could just sit there and go, what is happening to everybody else?
Yeah.
It just was horrifying to me. So I said, I've got to do a class that's teaching people about it. They need to know what's going on. And then I'm doing an autobiography that should be out by Christmas about my life, the first 70 years of it anyway. Because I tell my kids I'm going to live to 120, I've told you that.
We have the same number in mind.
Yes, there you go.
Mine's 120 also.
Lots to do.
Money with Mission is a real estate and business investment company that specializes in finding projects that have the potential to give you a great return on your investment dollar and make an impact in the communities where we invest. Make a difference in your life and the lives of others. Go to moneywithmission.com to learn more.
So go ahead and give the statistic again about the number of women going there. And when you say jail and you say prison, and I cannot tell you, I don't know the difference.
Okay,
and there's people that don't know the difference also.
You can go to a local county jail and they're shitholes, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And you could be thrown in you could have men and women in there and their tiny little places. And I've been made very familiar with them with the girls. A lot of girls start in county if they arrest you on the spot. A lot of times you'll get thrown into county. You might stay in county all the way up till you get into your sentencing and trial and everything after you've made a deal or while you're waiting to make a deal. And I read in the Wall Street, because I took it while I was in there and we'd have it in my class, that the average person waiting to make their deal ends up doing 2 more months longer than they would have been sentenced by the time they get them processed through. 2 months longer than you would have served sitting in county waiting to go. So there's a big issue to talk about what's a bail mean and who should be out on bail and who shouldn't be, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But here are some easy statistics. 60% of women are in prison are there for nonviolent drug crimes. They're not violent people. 67% of women in prison are mothers of children under the age of 18. So then you can go to, if you don't go to county, you might go to a state jail, which those are often down by the courthouses and stuff. And they're set up very much like a big federal jail is, behind bars, and they all electrically close and everything that you've seen.
Okay.
And, you get your counts and walks, or you qualify because of your age or because of your behavior or because your crime was so low to go like where I went to a camp. So at a camp, there are no bars, there are no locks. There's one guard there from 4:30 at night till 7:30 in the morning to guard you. And if it's a he won't come down where all the women are. So you're on your own to take care of yourself. That's probably when it's the most dangerous. And I just want our listeners to understand your tax dollars paid $170,000 a year for me to sit in that camp. $170,000. Now, I think they benefited because I taught people and helped people and did all the things I did. But your tax dollars paid for that when you could have been paying for me to be on home confinement, maybe $30,000 a year, and me having to do the work and me having to pay to be monitored. So there's just so much of it doesn't make sense. Another thing that happens in all the prisons is when you're in the Bureau of Prisons, which is the federal prisons, if you get on a medical hold, which means they found out something's wrong with you or diagnosed sick, you're on a medical hold and you can't get out. Cannot get out. My greatest fear going in there was something would happen to me and I wouldn't get out. It was a horrifying thing, especially when you go in there at 67 years of age. You're like, this can't be happening.
So So it sounds like then if you are sick, you may not want to tell anybody, especially if it's close to time for you to leave, because you may then not be able to leave.
Absolutely not. So when you get close to getting out, they start doing your blood work and stuff again, and you're trying to stall them not to go because you do not want them to find anything. And again, a lot of these women have been doing serious drugs. A lot of girls in the camp I was in and around were doing meth. And so they've done some damage to their body and they have issues. The other thing I want you to understand is, you know how you think they cover the basics for that $170,000? You don't have a toothbrush. You don't have a toothpaste. You don't have brush. You don't have a comb. You don't have soap so that you can take a shower. You have none of that when you go in and they don't give it to you. You have to wait till you can save up enough money to buy it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So what is our money going for?
I was going to say, where's my what does the $170,000 get? But the slat bed that you talked about?
The slat bed, and allegedly a guard that, they're paying $15 to $20 an hour. One, and then they have people like me. So let me give you an example of where their money also doesn't go. So I was a town driver. I'd have to fill up with the gasoline at the prison, and I'd have a big van with 8 kids going for mammograms, or I would have, one person in a van taking them to a bus stop in St. Louis, or maybe to a dental appointment in Effingham, Illinois. So I'm taking this person, you fill up with gas. If you're going down to St. Louis, you had to figure out where to park because you have no money. They give you no money, no charge card for emergencies. They give you a old phone from the 1990s, flip phone, that only calls the front desk of the men's prison. So, one time I got lost and I was an hour and a half away, and Miss Chris called me on the phone, the night guard, and said, "Where the hell are you?" And I went, "I don't know." She goes, "Well, how much gas have you got?" And I said, "About a little over a quarter of a tank." And I had a girl that had surgery in the van with me. And she goes, "Well, good luck, Womack." She sat down and she gave me directions. She tried to walk me through giving me directions, and she came running out. She was a good guard. She was a great guard. She really cared about the people, but she's gruff, very gruff. Uh-huh. But you're sitting there going, when I go take somebody to St. Louis, I'm out begging the guy, please don't tow this thing away. Please don't give me a ticket. I don't want to get in trouble. And I have to park here because I don't know where else to put a big van. It's stupid, the things that you have to do when you're accommodating them. Here's another thing that's crazy about it. If you go into a hospital and you're in a doctor's office, if you go first and a man comes in, they take 2 guards with a guy in shackles whenever the men go, because they're much higher security that's right by us. Right. But we have to get up and leave the room because they came in. Or if they're in there, we're not allowed to go in there. Now the guy's shackled and got 2 guards. Why? Some of the things are the stupidest things. It's just, they're just, nobody's asked the question. I think what I want Women of Worth to do is I want it to start conversations with people in and out of prisons for what's the quality of life? What did you want to do? Did you want to punish them, or did you want to get them ready to come back to life, come back to the real world? Mm-hmm. Let me tell you the greatest thing that goes wrong with anybody going to prison, and it started happening to me in the short time I was there. You become institutionalized. By that I mean you learn you can't make decisions for yourself. So everything you do, you have to check with somebody else, and you're a little slower. Now, I continue to make decisions for myself, but the fast pace of my life was so overwhelming to me when I came back home. It took me a year to get back into what was normal for me, and it just scared me because I had not been making those decisions. Life hadn't come at me that fast. I hadn't dealt with any of it. So imagine, if you're one of the regular girls and you've done drugs and maybe you haven't had a job, or you've worked at McDonald's, or you've been a waitress, or what have you, and you go into a halfway house and you have to go get a job, and they look at you and go, "You lazy bums, get out and get a job." Well, you almost want to say, "Mother, may I, where should I go apply for a job?" You don't know. You don't have transportation. All the information out there says that you cannot have a cell phone to go into a halfway house. When you get into a halfway house, you find out that if you don't have a cell phone, you can't get out of it. So part of what I want with the Women of Worth is to be able to look at the information that's out there and clean it up, make it current, and make it good information. Seems simple enough, doesn't it?
It does seem simple.
I'm
sure there's a lot of bureaucracy around it.
Well, probably is. But again, I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. But I have to start conversations for people to realize how much money is getting wasted for nothing to be accomplished. Nothing.
Yep.
And again, a lot of these women could be on home confinement. I'm not even going to argue with what they should be released or not. I'm just saying while you're there, they don't want you to sit on your beds in a prison, but they only have like 5 benches for 300 women to sit on. and you can't walk on the grass. Now, I know I keep going back to prison, but it's because all of it. So one of the things I'm doing is I'm working on a workshop pamphlet program for continuing education that I hope attorneys who represent felons, psychologists, children's psychologists might get to take for a continuing education class. Where, again, we can present to them, what if the girl walked in with a decent basic power of attorney so that she could spell out who's going to take care of things? What if you need to have a basic will in case you die, because they're not going to call your family. You need to have a living will, because if you go into a coma, they're not going to call your family. If the worst thing, you give a phone number to somebody you make friends with, and if you get taken away to get in trouble, or if you get taken away for medical, you have that person call their family to contact your family, because you just disappeared.
There's a lot.
There's so much. That's why I have to write a couple books. There's so much. And again, if they go to womenofworthwow.org website, I'm told there's a story about my first day there. Right now, I'm talking about when you get out, if you're on Medicaid or Medicare, which I was, you're under the government coverage while you're on home confinement. If you're on home confinement or at a halfway house, well, you want to make sure they don't release you like let's say it was the 2nd of July, because regular insurance for Medicaid, Medicare, or anything won't kick in until the 1st of the next month. So you have that time, especially if you're older or you're sick, you have no coverage. I had no coverage for 6 weeks. And I'd paid for it the whole time I was gone. And they said, well, it's good you paid for it, because those benefits could have been reduced if you didn't. Yeah. But I had no coverage. And I was just horrified by that. And it's another one of those details of, there are 3 different systems in jail. I'm going to back up a minute and say there's the system that's the justice system that puts you in jail, the FBI, the prosecuting attorneys, all that stuff. Then there's the Bureau of Prisons, and that's the jail system itself. And then finally, there's a whole different division of the justice system that puts you on parole, tells you what your rules are, how long you're on confinement, anything you've got to do to stay out of jail. The problem is none of those 3 different units talk. So what I'm trying to do with Women of Worth is come up with a way, in a friendly way, to get these people to say, I think all of our lives could be easier, yours too, if I can learn from you what you need, so that we can make a book and make a list and have the women take responsibility for their journey, just like you would if you got cancer or a serious illness.
Right. Or if you're going to college.
It's college.
Wow.
It's all of that.
Yes.
And again, often you have less than 30 days to get ready for it. And so another thing you need to know is when you go to jail, you're allotted just so much time to talk on the phone. Well, if you use every moment, and you can afford to use every moment, which many women can't, that's 10 minutes a day. So I talked to my husband every day for 10 minutes, and I saved an extra 15 minutes for emergencies. And then I video chatted with my sons every week for 25 minutes. So there's just no time.
Does the phone call cost? Do you have to?
Oh, yes. Yes. It costs about, I think it costs about 3 cents a minute. Mm-hmm. And email is 5 cents a minute. Everything costs. And that's the other thing. Everything, like when you buy some clothes and stuff when you're in jail, they put a 30% surcharge on it in the name of they're going to do something good for the inmates with that money. But where I was at, the assistant warden and the camp administrator embezzled $2 million of that money and left, and they just put them in another camp. Why would you let that money get up to $2 million before you did something for everybody? Why are you taking 30% of my money? They even take 30% more on stamps, which I thought was against the law.
So back to the $170,000 of tax money for each person in there. We still don't know what that's being used for.
No, and like our place, where I was one of the newer places, and it was over 20 years old. I'm telling you, the bathroom tiles stayed on the walls because of the mold.
Oh, gosh.
You had to wear shower shoes, which they don't provide. They cost $1. And until they open your account to fund it, so these are the kind of things that when I was a big sister, I would get other people who had extra money, to buy an extra pair of shower shoes. Or when they buy their shampoo, take their vitamin pills and give me a little dab of the extra shampoo so I could make packets. So when new girls came in, they would have shampoo, cream rinse, maybe some shower shoes, soap. because those are just the most fundamentals and you don't have them. Hygiene products. They just started giving out hygiene products the year I got there. So let's say, that you need 40 tampons, you need 20 pads and 20 tampons or whatever. That's how many you get the most. Well, if you're not healthy, there are many women in there who honestly are on a period 12 months out of the year.
A long time, yes.
It doesn't even begin to cover their needs. So I would stand in line every month to get extras so that other girls who couldn't have, because you can't buy them and they won't give them to you. You just can't get them. These are the differences about what I have to tell you. One more thing I have to tell you. So here's what happens, and here's why I care about women. When a man goes to jail, it's a terrible thing. And you hate to even think it's going to happen. But often mom or his wife or his girlfriend or somebody is staying behind and holding down the fort as best they can. They're hanging on and they're trying to make it work while dad goes to jail. When mom goes to jail, the kids go into a foster home. The home is lost. If you go to jail more than 2 years, they're adamant that they give up all your rights to your child. So you're so in shock. You do these things and then you're saying, I realize you raised my kid. Can I have visitation? There's so much that happens. And I want to try to help people break it into pieces and understand it. And I want them to understand how much money is being wasted. Yeah. These people are safe. They're guarding themselves.
Oh, Cheryl.
I know. It was an eye-opening experience.
Much. Oh, my gosh.
I mean, I just feel like I could go on, and I do to everybody, trust me. So, every time I think of something new or I find out. Right now, because of the riots, they're locked down and they get to get out at the camp where there's no locks, no bars, no anything to stop you from leaving. They get to get out by alley 1 hour a day, and that just started this week. They've been locked down since February.
Okay, speaking of lockdown and coronavirus.
Yeah.
You were not in when all this started, but
no,
what do you know about how that's affected them and the women that you might have known?
Well, I think they're letting a lot of people out because of the coronavirus. A lot is not a huge number, but some women are getting out. I'm so thankful. If they're older women, 50 and older, some women are going straight home, bypassing the halfway house and, getting on a monitor. So that's sort of a relief. At the two camps I'm most familiar with in Pekin, Illinois and in Greenville, they haven't had any cases. Now, there is a real thing called Con Air, and it just came in this last week and brought in a whole bunch of men and 14 women. And that's something you should read about in the book. It's quite amazing. Not good, but quite amazing. But one of the guys on the airplane was tested positive. So the girls, the 14 girls, are living in the visiting room where there's 3 bathrooms for 14 women, no showers, no anything. And they've had to makeshift up, beds and stuff and bring iron beds in to take care of them. And they have to stay there for 14 days. Can't come out, can't walk around, can't do anything. Because they got exposed in Con Air. And in Con Air, you get on with men, and men expose themselves and they grab at you. And even though they're in chains and stuff, they're a feisty little lot. And you're just, so imagine if you're in camp and you're going from one camp to another, but they make you go on Con Air instead of letting you go on a bus. That it's just, you're just exposed. And then I have to tell you, when you come out to Halfway House, where I went to Leavenworth, Kansas, where they have a silo farm building. Mm-hmm. And it had 175 men and 17 women, 6 different corridors, 1 for women, not a lock on the door, of every kind of criminal, state, city, local, federal, murderers, rapists, everything.
No door in the place had a lock? Is that what you're saying?
No. Well, the front door so you couldn't get out, so for the dorms to go into the different areas, no. First thing I did is check the door for where we all came into sleep, where we came and found the familiar iron beds. Nope. I mean, it was more dangerous for me to go to the halfway house than it was for me to be in camp with all women.
Yeah.
So
what are you doing? You've got a project going on. You're working on a house. Tell me more about that.
Right. So I bought a house in Maryville, Missouri on Main Street because it's a good college town. It's not very far away from a new Hope House that they're starting that will provide, a lot of possibilities for drug rehab, alcohol rehab, other substance abuse issues. It's got a good hospital in it. And so I bought the home and I've finished it outside and I've changed the electrical. But what women, well, they all need it, but what women need is if you're an older woman and let's say your kids just can't afford for you to live with them or you don't have kids, then you need a place to go live, and you're overwhelmed if you've been in for a while. I take this from a very good girlfriend I made in there named Dee Dee, who was 50 years old. She'd been in for 10 years, and she was horrified. When I took these girls to the bus stop, they shook. They were so afraid. They'd be afraid just to go to the doctors when it was their turn because they might not have been out for 7 years. They just the world scared them. So this is a place where it'll be completely furnished. It'll have 4 bedrooms. All they'll need are their clothes. And it'll have washer, dryer, everything you need. And they'll have shared living like they're used to in a decent kitchen, dining room, office with a computer, front room, and then you'll have a private bedroom. And we need lots of those. And so I've started that. Now you think about it. The house cost me about $75,000. It's probably going to cost me $75,000 to get it done. So $150,000 into the thing. It'll throw off about $2,000 a month. And I think the halfway house will maybe contract with me to put women in there who are going to go to Missouri, Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, in that area, who need a place to live. And they don't have room in the halfway house. So they've got to move them on to the next place, and they don't have a home to go to. They'll get to rent it month to month. They don't have to have utilities. They don't have to have a deposit. So they can save up their money, because when you start over, you got to have a deposit. You got to have utility. I can't tell you the girls who got it all set, got their parents to co-sign, one of their parents to co-sign, and then because they were a felon, they wouldn't give them the apartment.
Okay. So you got this first house going. Your plan, it sounds like, is to do a bunch more.
Yes. I've met with people who run credit unions, and I tried to do a charter credit union for inmates. And they've said because other credit unions can do it, then I can't get a charter. So my next goal then is to go team up with credit unions in communities where the three-quarter way houses are, to let them know I'm going to have an audience for them of people who need somewhere to be favorable to help them open an account. That if while women or men are in jail, they have a place they could open an account and send money. I don't think people realize how much money in child support or medical or something comes into these women. And then the government sits and holds their money. They don't earn any interest on it. Or if it goes to their homes, their family might take it and spend their money. So that money should go into an account that we collected a lot. My husband and I collected a lot of bank statements so that the kids wouldn't know how much money they had, because that's everything they were going to have to start over when they came out. So, if you could find a bank that would let them just make $25 a week payments and you're in there for, 5, 7, 10 years, then you're going to have some money in the bank, and then give them a credit card for half the money they've got in there. So start them with some credit, let them have a checking account or a debit account. I'm just trying to get in front of people to give them some logical steps to take to give these people another avenue. I want to work with CarMax or somebody like them, because if a woman's got a car and she's going in for more than a year, she needs to sell that car. I don't care how long she's had it, what it is, if it's free and clear. Somebody will drive that car, somebody will wreck that car, or somebody will steal that car. You used to have insurance, property taxes, all these things you have to pay on it while you're gone.
Right.
So get rid of that car, take the cash and get it in your savings account so you've got something to start over with. These are the kinds of things that will be in the book.
My audience is real estate investors, and I'm sure you have touched the heart of somebody out there, because I know you've touched mine. How can investors help? How can they find out more? And even if they want to invest with you, how can that work?
I'd be happy to put together a group fund where we could go out and we could venture capital and buy these homes, oversee and manage them, make the contracts, and pick the locations. Again, wherever there is a halfway house, of which there are less than half of what there used to be because they've just been closing them down. Those are places where people need to have some place to go move. And the money is not stupid money. It's good. It's decent money.
Yeah.
If you fix the place right and you take care of it right, and you're in a small community where the prices aren't so outrageous, then it's someplace women desperately need. Men need it too. I went and I gave a talk with CPAC combined with Van Jones, and we went and talked in a Philadelphia prison. And we sat amongst the prisoners after we gave our talks and stuff. Everything, because they believed me after I talked to them and couldn't believe I'd been in a federal penitentiary. And they just sat there and they said, "Is that true?" Every time somebody said something, because what's happening is people are making an entire business out of helping inmates, but they haven't been one.
Yeah.
You need people with some brains to step up. And I'm telling you, a lot of these women, the thing I like is a woman in Oklahoma could run a halfway house. A woman in Los Angeles could run a halfway or three-quarter way house. Even, they can help you manage these things. They can also do the continuing education classes. And a lot of them I've gotten trained and we've created the business plan. So, I see lots of possibilities come out of this for how to help these guys. It's just, again, having the time. I need people to reach out to me on my website, give me their ideas after they listen to all the things I've shared with them, ask any questions, throw out any possibilities, because I'm looking for what those opportunities will be that'll be the easiest to implement. I'm continuing to write the books. Those have to happen. I will do podcasts. I'm going to start my own podcast program. And 2 of the channels on the podcast program will be going over Women of Worth prison reform. One will be in English and one will be in Spanish. And I hope to start those by early August.
Okay. All right, you guys. I will have all of Cheryl's contact information in the show notes. Cheryl, I think you're going to be overwhelmed with how many people are going to reach out, because this is huge.
People can make money on this and still do a great thing.
And that's what we're about.
Yes.
Making a difference while improving your own bottom line. This is possible, you guys. We know it is. So we're going to let Cheryl go. But until next time, let's go out and make a difference, just like Cheryl is doing, improving the lives of others and your bottom line. Thanks a lot, you guys.
You've been listening to Money with Mission. There are projects happening right now where you can make a great return while positively impacting the lives of others. To learn more about today's guests or to download 7 steps to building resilient wealth for women, visit www.moneywithmission.com.
I hope you enjoyed the interview and are inspired to give your money a mission. Until next time, send your investment dollars into the world to bring you a financial return and improve the lives of others.